Hello everyone, back at it again. Today we're doing something a little different. I got my saltwater kayak out. That's a Hobie Revolution 13 with a pedal drive. Pedal drive looks a little funny, but amazingly it works pretty well at propelling the kayak forward. This is an old Hobie too. It still works great. I've got a older black and white Hummingbird 500 series fish finder on the bow. That works great too, and the black and white versions don't draw a lot of juice, so the battery lasts forever. I fished a couple days in a row on the same battery, and yeah, it worked great. But today I'm out here chasing funny fish, and in this case, funny fish means false albacore. In case you're not familiar, they're like little tuna. Sometimes they're called little tunny. And they look like albacore, but they're not, hence the false name. They're also smaller too. They typically range from about 5 pounds to 10. Anything over 10 is a pretty big albie. And I'm also chasing Atlantic Bonito. And those sort of look like a striped mackerel. But they get bigger. There's some baby Bonito around too, but they get to be 3, 4, 5 pounds. That seems like a common year class right now. And they get to be over 10 pounds too. Over 10 pound Bonitos are pretty big Bonito. But both of them are really fast. They're a lot of fun to target. They have good eyesight. And so conditions like this where there's a little bit of wind and chop are good for me because it means I can go up a little bit in pound test on my leader. I'm fishing 12-pound fluorocarbon leaders here. Right now I got an Albie Snacks on. But these fish, sometimes they go for metal lures, epoxy jigs, plastics, all kinds of stuff. Sometimes you can get them on top waters too. Kind of depends on the day. They also can go from one color preference to another. So one day they like shiny, silvery, baitfish type looking things. The next day they like electric chicken, which is pink and silver and chartreuse. And the next day they like shrimp, which is like an orange color. So they're a lot of fun to chase around. They're also a little bit maddening to fish for because they can be a little bit fussy at times. You can make a perfect presentation, you get your bait in there, and you get nothing. Again and again and again, you get nothing. So a lot of it is trial and error, figuring out what they want to eat on a particular day, changing lures, changing retrieves, changing speed. I just picked up a different rod. I've got what is that? That is old Cabela's Real Image jigging spoon, but it also works great for casting. And I think that color is called Bunker, and I don't think they make it anymore. Since Bass Pro Shops took over Cabela's, they dropped a few colors in that series. The glow color works pretty well too. Anyway, it looks like peanut bunker, and there are a lot of peanut bunker around. There's also some silver sides, all kinds of bait. Anyway, I got one to eat it. They pull really hard, and you can tail them. You can grab them by the tail when they go by the boat. If I can get my net out from behind me, I like to net them. Seems like less things go wrong when I get them in the net. I've got a little splash of water on the camera lens right now, but that'll burn off pretty quickly. I also have a bunch of fishing rods in the way of my camera, and I'm going to get rid of those too. So just bear with me for a few minutes. Next couple clips will be without the rods in the way. Every time this fish sees the net, he takes another run. I've got fairly light line on, and they have teeth too, so I can't let him get the leader in his mouth, otherwise he'll cut me off. I got boats going by. That guy was trying to get a closer look to see what I was catching. So as soon as I land this fish, I'm going to have to turn the Hobie kayak into the waves. I like to have the bow into the waves so the waves don't catch me midships and flood my seat. They're not going to sink the boat. It's just really more annoying than anything else. The Hobie has a big giant hole in the middle of the hull where the drive goes. It also has some scupper holes scattered throughout. So basically, if you get hit by a wave, all the water runs off the boat or runs through the boat. The only thing that happens is that I get my butt wet, and I really don't like paddling around with a wet butt all day long, and a wet towel and all that stuff, wet pants. So yeah, I just try not to let the waves get me. But that's the target species. That's a Bonito. A Bonito. And these guys are delicious. They're absolutely delicious. And I like them especially raw, like sashimi style. You could also make ceviche out of them. You can cook them. You can smoke them. I've had them smoked too. They're pretty good. But the only thing you can't do with them is cook them too long. If you cook them too long, they turn into, well, I don't know for sure, but they turn into something like cat food. And yeah, it's not very appetizing. So if you treat them like tuna, like little tuna, they're delicious, absolutely delicious. And that one's coming home with me. I got some ice in the cooler behind me. And he had that, I was fishing with that metal spoon, the Cabela's Real Image jigging spoon. And he had it into his gills and he was bleeding. And so, yeah, he's coming home with me and he's going to be delicious. On the way back, I stopped and got more ice, topped off my cooler. And yeah, as long as you take care of them, they are absolutely delicious. They're right up there with any sushi restaurant. Especially when they're super fresh like this. I would say they're not quite as good as bluefin tuna, sushi grade bluefin tuna, but I think they're up there with yellowfin tuna and pretty much anything else that you might get at your favorite sushi restaurant. All right, it's the next day. We got a little bit less wind, which makes the fish a little bit more leader shy and a little bit more fussy. I went through a whole bunch of lures till I found something they would eat. And that something was a Hard Snacks electric chicken. It's got a single hook on the back. I just missed one there. But once you find something that they'll hit, that they'll swing at, even if you don't actually land any immediately, if you just keep casting that, whatever it is, whatever you found worked, it's a numbers game. You just keep putting it in front of enough fish, and eventually one of them will grab that single hook on the back. Now, why electric chicken? The best explanation I can come up with is that there's a lot of bait in here, a lot of peanuts, a lot of silver sides, and it looks like a bait fish, but it doesn't look exactly like all the thousands and millions of other bait fish in here. It looks different, and it's kind of like an attractor color. And so when there's a lot of bait, I like those brighter colors, the pinks, the electric chicken, the shrimp, something that looks like a bait fish, but the color is all wrong, and it just looks different. And you're trying to get their attention away from the thousands and millions of other bait fish in the schools. That's the best explanation I can come up with. You know, why pink and silver and chartreuse would make a fish eat it. It doesn't look anything like the bait. I can't really say, but I can tell you on the right day it works. And I just hooked up. That took a really long time to finally get one to eat it. But I was getting bumped, and I knew if I just stuck with it and tried a few different retrieves, I had the rod sticking up high, I had it kind of flat to the water, I tried a really fast skipping retrieve, I tried slower retrieves, and eventually I got one to finally eat it. Anytime they're towing the Hobie, that's a good sign that they're a decent fish. They're a really fast fish. The other thing that I like to do is go around the front of the bow, and so I have a 7.6 rod with me. That's a TFO Professional. I think it's the Pro S, and it's a medium power rod. So that rod is plenty powerful for these size Bonito, and it has a short butt, which I like in the kayak. and I can get the tip of the rod even when it's under pressure around the front of the Hobie, which is key, because if you can't get your rod around the front part of your bow, they can break rods, you can lose fish. It's just a bad scene. Anyway, I like a little extra length, especially during albie season and bonito season. Got a single hook right in the corner of the mouth, so it's easy release. And this one's going back to swim another day. You want to spike them. If you just let them go over the side of the boat, a lot of times they don't swim away well, and that's because they're in the tuna family and they need water constantly going over their gills to breathe and oxygenate their blood and all that good stuff. So the best way to release them is, get them in quick, get them unhooked quick, and then football spike them back into the water. Not hard, I'm just tossing them back in, but I'm not gonna, gently release them next to the boat like you would a bass or something like that. They need water going over their gills to get that oxygen in their blood again. Alright, it's the next day. I switched locations and I've switched boats too. The location part is because I lost the tide. I like the last 2 hours of the incoming if I have a choice, and I can kind of bounce around and launch wherever I want to optimize the tide. So that's what I've done here, and the little kayak is just a little bit easier to maneuver. I can spin it around a little bit faster. It's also easier to launch and land and drive away, pick it up and fish another spot. And with conditions like this that are pretty flat, there's just a few rollers and some boat wakes from the boats running around chasing bonito and albies. It's fine. Just a little bit of a bouncy ride is all. And so conditions like this are fine in a little boat. You just have to pick your days and be smart. And if it gets a little too crazy, you just have to bail. You just go back to the beach or ramp or wherever you launched from and try again another day, or fish a salt pond or whatever. Anyway, I was being driven crazy by these bonito on this trip. They didn't want to hit anything, and that's partly because the seas are pretty flat. They eat a little bit better for me when there's some chop on the water, when there's some wind. And if I find myself in my little boat and not getting any bites, it's usually because the fish are getting too good a look at my lures. But I got my head on a swivel. I'm listening for fish. I'm looking for fish. And there's a few different strategies I see people employing from boats and kayaks. One of them is just to run like crazy all around and run over fish, run through fish. I tend to find a spot where there's some fish at and wait for them to come up again. You see this red boat? You'll see him again. As soon as I hook up, he's following me. That's a sure way to get some company out here. Is if you hook up with a fish, there's probably going to be a boat or a kayak or 5 on you in, I don't know, a couple minutes. So I have to be a little careful about where I'm fishing. I try to fish, especially in a little boat like this, I try to fish alone, try to fish away from other people. But that's not always possible, especially if people see me hooking up with fish. I'm going to have company. I'm fishing on the weekend on this day, and yeah, I'm going to have some company. So I'm making a short paddle where I saw some fish blowing up. Couldn't really see them very well, but they were in the top left corner there for a second on the screen. It's a pretty fast retrieve. I'm fishing a little Maria jig. Maria used to make these epoxy jigs before Hobie did, and they were great. I still have one or two somewhere. I don't fish them anymore because, I don't know, they're kind of nostalgic for me now. But they came out with these, I guess they're little lead spoons, and they work pretty well. I like the old Maria jigs better, but these little I think they're called Yamamista, something like that. So when I get a shot at some fish, try to launch that little metal jig in there. I've tried some brighter colors earlier in the day, shrimp, electric chicken, and now I'm trying to match the hatch. It's a small little spoon. I think it's about 28 grams. It's black and silver with a glow belly. Not sure if that makes a lot of difference or not, but it looks a lot like a little peanut bunker. It looks like a little bait fish. And I'm looking around for fish. There's a lot of, at least for me, there's a lot of looking, not too much casting. You can catch them blind casting too, but I have better luck doing that at breachways and jetties and outlets and things like that, where there's some current to hold bait fish and some current to hold fish. They like those kind of ambush spots, and those are kind of high percentage spots to be casting at all the time, even if you don't see fish showing. They can also be good spots for like a splasher and fly, or a casting egg and fly, something like that. But I'm just fishing open beach here, so I'm kind of waiting for the fish to show themselves, and then if they're close to me and I can make a clean cast without getting in anybody else's way or having somebody cut me off or whatever, I'll launch the spoon in there and hope for the best. But these are tough conditions on this trip for fooling fish. They've got pretty good eyesight. I talked to someone, I think it was the next day, and they had gone down to 6-pound fluoroliter to get these foolish fish to bite. And that's really light. I mean, that's like ultralight freshwater territory. And it's something I hadn't thought about doing because, well, I figured I'd break him off. And he did hook up immediately when he cast his bait in there, but then he also broke off in about 6 seconds. But it just goes to show you that they are leader shy, and going down to super light leaders can get you bit. But if anything nicks that leader or touches it the wrong way, you know, that bait is gone and that fish is gone. So there's a balance of how low you can go in leader material and also have a reasonable chance of landing the fish. Now this gentleman said that he landed plenty on 6-pound fluoro, which is surprising to me. My guess is that he has to play him for a long time before landing him, which can be stressful for the fish too. But on the other hand, he did get bit immediately and it seemed like nobody else was getting bit. So, I don't know. These fish are a lot of fun, but they can also be kind of frustrating too. You got to try a lot of different things. You got to be fairly patient. In a little kayak like this, I don't have a ton of chances, so if they do come up near me in range, I have to make those chances count. I think I was switching baits there. Kind of looks like a similar small metal jig. I forget what I had tied on now. Maybe I was just retying that Maria jig. I see some fish up ahead. I'm going to paddle a little bit just to get a little bit closer to the fish. I'm not making big moves in this little kayak because honestly I wouldn't get very far. A couple miles is a lot in a little paddle kayak like this. With the Hobie I have more range too. I want to get just one more paddle stroke in there. Once again, they're in the top left corner. I know they're kind of hard to see. It's pretty fast retrieve. I had to correct myself a little bit mid-cast. See if I can get one to go. Another thing you can do is you can try to pay attention to which way the fish are heading. Sometimes they'll be heading in an obvious direction, like they'll be working west to east or east to west, or with the tide or whatever. But if you can kind of figure out which way they're headed, you can lead them a little bit, and that can be key in getting those fish to eat. So if you cast to where they just blew up, that could be where they were, not where they're going to next. And you want to, if you can, lead them a little bit. Sometimes they kind of circle in on themselves and they're only in one little location, and they kind of take swipes through the bait fish and then come back in a circular fashion. But if you can, it's sort of like how I trout fish in the winter. I try to lead the fish. If you notice how they're rising in the water, if you can figure out which way they're heading, that's a really important piece of the puzzle. It's pretty fast retrieve most of the time for me, especially in flatter water like this. The faster you go, the less they seem to be able to pick out your leader. I also had my rod tip pointed pretty high up towards the sky. That keeps a lot of the leader out of the water. So that makes the leader size less of a factor if it's out of the water. But anyway, it worked. And there's that red boat coming in at me. Anytime you're hooked up with a albie or bonito, usually, at least from my experience, the boats start creeping in on you. It's just kind of the way it is. I wish it wasn't, but from my experience, that's just what happens. So I don't get upset about it anymore. I just kind of roll with it. I'm headed for this kayaker, and he's out for a paddle. He's not fishing. I don't know if he's got a racing kayak or what, some sort of sea kayak. And he asked me how the fishing is, and I said, I got one on right now. A lot of people out there, you know, there's all kinds of people out in the ocean. Some are fishing, and they're very aware of their surroundings and what's going on and etiquette and all that stuff. There's other people that, you know, maybe it's their first boat, maybe it's their first time out on the water, and they really have no idea what they're doing. That's my best explanation for it. You know, they don't seem to be able to see the fish. They can't see birds. I don't know if everybody needs glasses, but they run right through the fish, and then they look around for the fish. And it's really amazing to me. I mean, the fish that they're looking for are the ones that are underneath their hull now. It's crazy. But you just have to kind of roll with it. I mean, there's all kinds of different people out there. The best ones for me to fish with are other kayakers or the fly guys. The fly guys seem pretty in tune with the fish in general. I mean, there's always exceptions, but they seem pretty in tune with the fish. They don't run right through the school. They tend to, lead the fish. They cut their engine early and glide in. That's another nice bonito. He was hooked just in the corner of the mouth. Nice clean release there, so off he goes. And then I can see some more birds. Make another cast, see if I can get another one. Rod tip high, reeling fast, trying to keep that leader out of the water. It worked so well just a cast ago. Oh, I remember what I was doing. I was putting a loop knot on the nose of that little Maria jig. And I thought I had a snap on there earlier, and I had taken the snap off because I thought it was interfering with the fish eating the bait. And I thought I had the the system cracked. You know, I thought that loop knot worked so well, I just tied it on. I thought I'd get more fish in the boat right away, but they were real fussy on this trip. Remember that red boat that came in earlier when I was hooked up? I'm going to see him again in just a second. There's some fish right in front of me. I'm going to cast at them. Fast retrieve, rod tip high, keeping that leader out of the water. And look who it is. It's the red boat. And he's going to run right over the fish. It's got a real nice boat. Twin engines on the back, I think. Maybe 26, 28 feet. Real nice boat. But unfortunately, he's sitting right over where the fish were. And, you know, it's really hard to fish for them if they're underneath your hull. I mean, I guess you could try jigging for them. But, yeah, he cut me off, so I can't cast. I could cast. I could put that spoon right in his boat if I wanted to, but that'd be kind of rude. Anyway, you just have to kind of roll with this kind of stuff. And, you know, I don't know if people are just not aware, or they can't see the fish, or they can't see the birds. He knew something was going on because I was casting that way. But you know, I can't fish with boats like that. But there's always more fish in the sea, as they say. And that's another thing. If there's no fish showing, a lot of times I'll just jig. Or if I find a boat's following me. I've had boats follow me after I hook fish. I mean, they'll follow me. They'll be 20 yards behind my stern. And I can go every which way and they just follow me. 20 yards behind me. It's ridiculous. And eventually I'll just cross my arms and stop paddling. Or the other thing I like to do is just start jigging. And a lot of times I find anywhere from 6 feet to 36 feet, the bottom is paved with fish. A lot of them might not be, you know, like keeper black sea bass, but there's all kinds of stuff down there. Cunner, scup, juvenile black sea bass, sea robins, the brown sea robins, the orange sea robins. Sometimes we get exotic fish like blue runners, little yellowtail jacks, puffer fish. I caught a few short fluke, just jigging, waiting for the fish to show up. I let them go, of course, because they're short. But if you just want to go out and have some fun, and maybe you're with a young kid, or maybe your girlfriend or wife, and they haven't caught a fish before, or grandson or granddaughter, whatever. Most of the time with these small metal jigs, if you just jig them over the side, you don't need any bait. You don't need anything really. You just start jigging over the side, and it's amazing. It seems like in some spots the bottom is paved with fish, all kinds of fish. And so, if you wanted, you know, a scup dinner, I brought home a scup the other day. It was delicious, nice and fresh. It was the last fish I caught all day. Put it right in the fish cooler when I got back to the truck, and delicious. So I was waiting for those bonito to come up again, but they never came up. So I started jigging, and just like I was talking about, maybe 6-inch pops, 12-inch pops.
Oh no.
And I was catching fish left and right.
Oh no.
I'm in pretty shallow water here. The jigging's a little better in deeper water. And that's one of those little brown sea robins. I guess he's not that little. But he was croaking, making all kinds of noises. They're cool fish. They have wings. They have little legs they use to walk on the bottom. Look at them. Crazy looking fish. I've caught lizard fish out here. Dogfish, which are like little baby sharks. all kinds of stuff. I kept waiting for those Bonito to show up again, but they never really did. At least none that I could get at. So I just occupied myself jigging, and I was having a good time jigging out here. You can fish pretty much any metal spoon. I have a single hook on the back of mine, and that's not ideal for jigging, but I was still catching plenty. Anyway, thank you all for watching. I know this is a little bit of a different video, and it ran a little bit long. So thank you all if you managed to watch this long into the video. I really appreciate it. Just like all my other videos, I'll list all the gear in the video description so you can duplicate what I was doing out here today and the past few days catching fish on different lures, all that good stuff. I'll catch you on the next one. See ya!